Today, Israel hits a Gaza hospital, killing at least 15 people, including journalists. A weekend of deadly strikes despite talk of peace between Ukraine and Russia. The US confirms its first travel-associated human case of screwworm. South Korea's president hopes for a breakthrough with Trump. Anti-migrant protests in Britain, and wrongly deported Kilmar Abrego reunites with family in Maryland. It's Monday, August 25th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. Israeli strikes on Nasser Hospital in Gaza have killed at least 15 people, including 3 journalists, one of whom worked for Reuters. That's according to Palestinian health officials. Cameraman Hussam al-Masri, one of the journalists killed in the strikes, according to officials, was a contractor for Reuters. Photographer Hatem Khaled, who was also a Reuters contractor, was wounded in a second strike, the officials said. Witnesses say the second strike took place after rescue workers, journalists, and other people had rushed to the site of the initial attack. The Reuters live video feed from the hospital, which was operated by Masri, suddenly shut down at the moment of the initial strike, according to Reuters footage. The Israeli military and Prime Minister's office both had no immediate comment regarding the strikes. Please monitor Reuters.com and the Reuters app for the latest on this news. Now to Ukraine, where the deadliest European war since World War II is continuing despite talk of peace. Weekend drone strikes by Ukraine hit a Russian nuclear plant and separately ignited a fire at a major fuel terminal, according to Russian officials. Meanwhile, US Vice President J.D. Vance says Russia is making significant concessions in peace talks, which would include security guarantees for Ukraine and dropping demands for regime change in Kyiv. But Moscow still wants Ukraine to give up the Donbass and stay out of NATO. The US has confirmed its first travel-associated human case of New World screwworm in a traveller returning to Maryland from Central America. The CDC says the public risk is low, but cattle producers are alarmed. The flesh-eating parasite burrows deep into living tissue and can be fatal if untreated. Israeli airstrikes have hit Yemen's capital, Sanaa, killing at least 6 and wounding dozens. They say it's in retaliation for a ballistic missile fired by Houthi militants towards Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying in a statement after the strike, "Whoever attacks us, we attack them." The Iran-backed Houthis say they will continue launching attacks in solidarity with Gaza. South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, faces a pivotal moment when he meets President Trump for their first summit later today. Much is riding on the meeting for Lee, who took office after a snap election after his conservative predecessor was removed for attempting to impose martial law. Josh Smith tells us what's at stake.
South Korea's economy is heavily dependent on its exports to the United States. And obviously, Trump has brought his own views of alliances and relationships with trade partners to all of this, and has in the past really singled out South Korea for criticism, basically complaining that it's freeloading off American military guarantees without paying enough towards that as a rich nation. The trade deal that was hastily negotiated a few weeks ago has still not really be formally written down. So the South Koreans still have a lot to iron out with the United States on this. South Korea has also faced calls from Trump to increase the amount that it pays towards the upkeep of some 28,500 U.S. troops that are stationed here in South Korea. And so I think the South Koreans are expecting at some point to pay more, but I think they're hoping to limit the amount that they're going to have to pay in the end.
Lee's team are hoping the two leaders hit it off.
In the past, he's been critical of the United States and vowed to improve ties with China. And so he's faced sometimes some skepticism within Washington over his commitment to the U.S. alliance. He said that he's read The Art of the Deal, Trump's book. Lee has also, in recent months, talked about how they're both leaders who look out for their country's best interests and how they both survived assassination attempts. And so he's gone out of his way to try to show that he's on the same page with Trump in many ways.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia reuniting with his family in Maryland. He was deported to his native El Salvador in March, despite an immigration court ruling that he not be sent there due to a risk of persecution by gangs. But his freedom may be short-lived, as he faces criminal charges for transporting undocumented migrants. Fox News has reported that the US government have notified Abrego's lawyers that he will be deported to Uganda within days, and that he's been asked to appear at a federal building in Baltimore later today. Their report cites US Immigration and Customs Enforcement documents. Neither ICE nor Abrego's attorneys responded to Reuters' comments to authenticate the documents. Another weekend of anti-migrant protests here in Britain. Demonstrators have been gathering outside hotels housing asylum seekers, including in Epping near London, which has become a flashpoint for the protests. Sam Tabariti has more.
Asylum seekers are housed in hotels because there's a shortage of suitable accommodation and delays in processing claims. The government has said that, hotels are used as a contingency measure while they try and sort out the housing issue. The government has pledged to end their use by the end of this parliament in 2029, but it is struggling to meet that at the moment. It has become the main topic in the UK. It has overtaken the economy as a top public concern, and it's due to different factors, including one, the cost. The government has spent £2.1 billion last year on hotel accommodation for asylum seekers, but also because in Epping, one of the asylum seekers living in a hotel was charged with sexual assault, and that has triggered widespread protest across the country. The person has denied the charges, but he's still facing trial. And Nigel Farage, who's the leader of the Populist Reform UK party, has used this as a way to rally people around his agenda. Farage set out his plans for mass deportation of migrants should his party win the next election. He said that his party would withdraw Britain from the European Commission on Human Rights, strike repatriation deals with countries like Afghanistan and Eritrea, and build holding sites for 24,000 migrants.
And for today's recommended read, maybe one to avoid for nervous flyers. We dive into data that shows in civil aviation, no seat is reliably safe, but also look at some incredible tales of survival from deadly plane crashes. You can find the story by following the link in the pod description. And if you haven't listened yet, our latest episode of On Assignment podcast is out. This week's is all about mining and critical minerals in Democratic Republic of Congo. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player, and if you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters, 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.